This is a Willets Point Shea Stadium bound 7 express train. The next and last stop is Willets Point, Shea Stadium.
That's how we start off with our show. I was muted, so that's fun. 14 people in here right now got to see me on mute. Appreciate every single one of you. So let's start this off right. Anthony Rivera here with you, Subway to Shea podcast, as we talk about all the news and happenings surrounding that team from Queens, the New York Mets, episode 157 from the Subway to Shea studios in my office. Make sure you like this video. Make sure you're subscribing to the Subway to Shea YouTube page. And make sure you're following me on X, Instagram, and TikTok at Subway to Shea. You can follow me personally at Ant Rivera 86 and subscribe on Apple Podcasts and Spotify if you're listening to it on the audio, or if you're watching, you're doing right now on YouTube. Make sure you're doing all of those things. And this is a solo episode today. It'll be just me, no guest, just me and you, 22 people so far in the room. Thank you so much for joining. Brad, shout out to you. Top Bunk, Stanley Babich in here, Jeff Cohen in here, Pan Trice in here. Let's get right into this show because there's so much to talk about over this 3-game set with the Baltimore Orioles. And as Pan Trice said, as Jeff Cohen said, what an awesome 2 walk-offs for this series. Nice walk-offs. That's what we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about that Winker walk-off that we saw today. Jesse Winker, that big walk-off home run in the bottom of the 9th to seal the series for the New York Mets. And Jesse Winker's moment, right? Like Jesse Winker's New York Mets moment. We all been waiting for it. Not to say that, he's been bad so far, because there's a lot of people that I saw on X and Twitter that said they didn't like what they've seen from Jesse Winker so far. But I got to say, I really like what I've seen from him. And I am happy that he hit that big home run. Okay, look at that, what he did, man. That was huge today. The Mets needed that, and they got it from Jesse Winker, and I'm so happy for him. I really am. So, we look at his stats this season, and I want to pull those up for you because as a New York Met, he's been hitting pretty well. I think he was hitting probably about 298 for the New York Mets. I know he only has a home run and 4 RBIs, but he's batting 298 or 288. I'm looking on Baseball Reference, and that doesn't have the updated stats right now. So let me pull up the MLB.com because they are always updated with their stats right up to the minute. And look, I got to say, man, this was a huge game for the New York Mets. It was a huge game, not only for what we needed to see in the standings, because we just found out that the Braves lost to the Philadelphia Phillies, which puts the Mets a game and a half out of the final wild card spot. Just what we wanted to hear today, because after yesterday, every other team won. The Padres won, the Diamondbacks won, the Braves had won, and the Mets were the only team that lost. But it's great to see them get that game right back, and they are now only a game and a half out of that third wild card spot. Now, looking at the stats here, yes, 1 home run, 4 RBIs, but he's batting 288. Jesse Winker has not been that bad as a New York Met. You got to go with how much playing time he's really had, and he's not playing every day. That's not what he was brought in here for. I wanted to see him come in a trade, and I'm happy that he did. I was one of the Met fans that pushed for Jesse Winker to come in here. I thought it was the right guy at the right time. And as Jeff Cohen said, great timing for his first home run. Maureen saying she has a new video to watch over 50 times now, as if the Francisco Alvarez walk-off wasn't enough. So the Mets win this series against the Orioles. They won the series against Miami. That's back-to-back series wins there, heading into what is a pivotal road trip we will get down to in a little bit later on in the show today. But let me know what your thoughts are so far with Jesse Winker on this team. Like I said, he's not been brought here to be that, big time bat. He is a kind of a platoon player. You see how they've been using him all season. Well, you see how they've been using him since they traded for him. And it's going to be a rotation in the outfield. Outside of Brandon Nimmo, as long as Brandon Nimmo is healthy, who's going to play mostly every day. Jesse Winker, Harrison Bader, Tyrone Taylor, and now Starling Marte, who came back this past weekend. These guys are going to rotate. They are just going to rotate these outfielders through. And I think it's a good thing. I think it's a good thing that the Mets have this depth in the outfield, because we know that Starling Marte is not going to give us full game play, right? Especially in the outfield. So with a guy like Jesse Winker, who can come in and spell him a couple of innings, or vice versa, you got Tyrone Taylor, who's a great fourth outfielder. Harrison Bader's going to come in when you need him. Like Maureen says, it keeps them fresh. And that's what you need. There's only a few players on this Mets team that is going to play mostly every day. Pete Alonso's one of them. And the other one has played, I think, every single game this season. And that is Francisco Lindor, who we will also get into in this show. Stanley saying that he can play right field and DH, which is true. I think he can play left field as well. I don't know about him playing center. I haven't seen that, but I assume left field, I assume right field, and like you said, DH as well when needed. Jeff Cohen saying Winker gives off some kind of vibe for the Mets. That goes along with what Ibby's saying. I walk into this chat throwing my helmet in extreme joy, because that is what Jesse Winker did. And like I said on X, inject that into my veins. Seriously, I'd never seen someone so pumped for a home run. And what a way, I don't want to say to introduce yourself to the Met fans, because he's always been that villain. And now he plays the hero. You play the villain long enough to now become the hero of that team. And Jesse Winker helped solidify, as what Jeff Cohen has put, the 5-4 homestand. Could have been better. Should have been better. Should have beaten the Oakland A's. But as a lot of teams are finding out, the Oakland A's are having a great second half. So once that A's series was over, we had to move on from it. The Mets took care of business against Miami, although they should have had Sunday's game as well, and maybe a few more inches into the outfield, and Francisco Lindor would have had a game winner for you. That was a game that I went to. And then you go to this Baltimore series, which, let's be honest, a lot of fans on X were worried about this series the most. Hey, we got to beat Oakland. We got to beat Miami, because we don't have a chance against Baltimore. We don't got a chance against one of the teams leading in the AL East. And guess what? The Mets took care of business against the Baltimore Orioles. Shout out to Top Bunk Sports. You've seen him on this show before, David, my good friend here. Always fun seeing him at Citi Field. Said Francisco Lindor has only missed one game this season, showing you how durable he is. 100% true. 100% true. He has been such a huge part of this team. And I'm going to get into that shortly with you. But as we look into this series, Mets walk off and over the Baltimore Orioles to win this series. A lot of momentum swings, a lot of momentum changes. Obviously, you had the Jesse Winker walk-off win here. In game one, you had the Francisco Alvarez walk-off win, something that was needed for him, a walk-off bomb on the 3-0 pitch. Both walk-offs off of Sir Anthony Dominguez, who's now 3-4 with a 4.40 ERA. Thank you, New York Mets. Appreciate that. We all know Dominguez from the Philadelphia Phillies, who they traded him to the Orioles at the deadline. But it was a really good series for the New York Mets. And really, you look at, and tell me if you agree or disagree with me here. You look at everything post-trade deadline, right? The Mets have not been playing their best, right? Their best baseball came in June and July. But you look at all of those losses post-trade deadline. How many of those losses were on the Mets and all the mistakes that they made? A lot of them. You look at game 2 against the Orioles. That's a good look into that, right? The Danny Young error in the 9th. All those mistakes that happened while the Mets were trying to stage a comeback. This Mets team is only holding themselves back. Only holding themselves back. And if they can figure out those issues, whether it's base running blunders, defensive blunders, the walks, which has killed this team all season long, this Mets team could be further on top of the wild card right now. Right now, they're a game and a half back thanks to the Phillies beating the Braves. But they could be way better. The Braves are basically, with all of their injuries, and I would never want to see any of these guys injured. You want to beat them at their best. But you look at Ronald Acuna Jr. out. You look at Spencer Strider out. Austin Riley now out. Ozzie Albies out. Max Fried has been in and off injury. They're basically handing the third wild card to the Mets. But the Mets won't take it. And hopefully, with this road trip coming up, the Mets can figure out their issues and finally get that third spot in the wild card. Now, as I mentioned with this Orioles series, you go into game 1 here, and Francisco Alvarez with the big game-winning home run. Nice to see him get off the snide there. He's batting .253, but not much power. We got to see JD Martinez hit a home run. We've been missing that. We have been missing that. Got a solid pitching performance from David Peterson, and a couple of mistakes ended up screwing that up. You had the balk. You had the home run. So he didn't favor into the decision. Budo had a nice outing in that game. Diaz had a nice outing. Alvarez with the game winner. The momentum swing of this, man, you think that would have carried the Mets? You think that Francisco Alvarez home run, the way everything went down, that would have carried their momentum into game 2? Did it? Absolutely not. Because we got to see Jose Quintana, who in his last 4 starts now has an over 8 ERA. This is a guy who was supposed to be the de facto ace of this team and has pitched anything despite that. He has not, and we all know he's not an ace, but we thought he'd be a whole lot better than what he's doing right now. There are a lot of concerns when it comes to Jose Quintana. Soft tossing, too much nibbling. It seems like him working with Francisco Alvarez is kind of worn off on him. Because remember, he had that nice run with Francisco Alvarez. And now he's reverted back to the pitcher that we saw at the beginning of the season. He's got to figure something out. And it has to be soon. Because we cannot have this all September. Absolutely not. Just like Jeff Cohen says, Quintana needs to throw strikes, no more free passes. And I know Ibby wants to shoot him with a rocket right into space. But with the fact that the Mets are so short on pitching, and the fact that I don't ever want to see Tyler McGill start again, they're kind of stuck with Jose Quintana. They really are. Sucks to say it. But once the season's over, I assume that Jose Quintana is not going to be on this team again. A lot of people comparing him to Carlos Carrasco. If we could get anything from Jose Quintana, he's been giving up long balls a lot too. Walks and long balls. And that's an appetite for destruction. Got to get over that. You're a veteran. You're supposed to be one of the leaders of this pitching staff. And we're counting on you to help this team get to the postseason for the first time since 2022. Got to snap out of it, Jose. And just like Ibby says, the Christian Scott injury, along with Kodai Senga being out for the season, has benefited Jose Quintana. Actually, I don't even know if we're going to see Christian Scott again. It probably is wise to just keep him off for the rest of the season. Jeff Cohen asking, can Jeremy Hefner do anything to help Quintana? Look, I think everyone in this chat, from Carlos Ortiz to Junior Swingman to Lane Kerner, Ibby, Stanley, everyone on here, Maureen, Patty and NYC Top Bunk, everyone in here knows how I feel about Jeremy Hefner. The guy's Teflon. He's been through so many regimes, dating all the way back to Luis Rojas. We have had issues with walks since the beginning of the season, and they have not improved. What is Jeremy Hefner doing with these guys? I don't know. I don't know. I have no idea what Jeremy Hefner is doing with these guys. I don't see enough improvement from this pitching staff to keep Jeremy Hefner here even longer. And I know that Andy Martino, he said the same thing that was said about Luis Rojas. Oh, if this guy's gone, someone else is going to pick him up. I don't know. And now there's the talks, and people have been putting it in the chat about, and this was talked about in one of Andy Martino's articles, that Jeremy Hefner wants to be a GM. I don't know if I want Jeremy Hefner to be a GM of the Mets, but I say that now and watch him do well as the Mets general manager, and someone will quote tweet me or save one of my posts, bookmark it, saying, oh, look, Jeremy Hefner just succeeded. And now look. Pantrice is right. Hefner can only do so much. At the end of the day, the ball is in the pitcher's hand. But unfortunately, there have been a lot of pitchers that have come through here that have not succeeded or turn around under the wings of Jeremy Hefner. And if you want to count 2022 successfully, did those starting pitchers really listen to Jeremy Hefner, or did they huddle around themselves and look at iPads and analyze their pitching matchups? Was Jacob deGrom really listening to Jeremy Hefner? Was Chris Bassett? Was Max Scherzer? Same thing with the batting coach, as Stanley says. Why does this team need 2 batting coaches? I don't know. It's time to only have one again. It's time to only have one hitting coach again. Shout out to 4514 Smash Mouth, a.k.a. the Jingle Man, saying, Quintana, get it together, bruh. Yeah, he better get it together because, first off, this road trip is very important to this team. And so is September. And he's the only starting pitcher right now that has been almost unwatchable and unusable, to the point where David Peterson has jumped him in the depth chart. David Peterson, Paul Blackburn, Luis Severino, who had the complete game shutout this weekend, Sean Manaea, who was perfect for 5 innings. Jose Quintana right now is on the outside looking in on a playoff postseason roster if this team makes it in. And I'm sure they're going to want his veteran presence on there because we've seen what he can do in the postseason. He pitched very well with the Cardinals a couple of years ago. Get it together, Jose. Get it together. I want to switch gears here. I want to talk positivity with this Mets team. And it starts with the heart and soul of this team. Francisco Lindor. 25 home runs, 25 stolen bases. Sarah Langs of MLB saying the first shortstop in MLB history with 3 seasons of 25 homers, 25 stolen bases. third time in Francisco Lindor's career. 2018 with the Cleveland Guardians, but before that, the Cleveland Indians. 2023 and 2024 with the New York Mets. Back-to-back seasons. And I think he's looking, you guys can correct me if I'm wrong, that this will be the first time we'd have back-to-back 30-30s if he does get there since Howard Johnson and Darryl Strawberry. I think. Just like Carlos Ortiz saying, 30-30 is just around the corner. Stanley Babbage, Lindor is the team MVP. Absolutely. And agree with me if you will. This has been his best season as a New York Met so far. He was good in 2022, good in 2023. But I think this season has been his best. And he got off to the absolute worst start for about a month, batting .089. And look at where Francisco Lindor is now. Lindor has totally turned his season around. 25 home runs, 25 stolen bases, an .816 OPS, batting .266, all the way back from when he batted .089 at the end of April. Guys turned the season around. 73 RBIs. Just like Pantrice is saying, how crazy would Lindor's stats be without the slow start? Historic. This team would probably be further into a wild card spot if he got off to a better start. But to be fair to him, he wasn't the only one that got off to a bad start. The whole entire offense was awful for the first month of the season. And they turned it around. That's what we like to see from Mr. Smile. And, you know, I was looking at his career as a Met. I was looking at his career as a Cleveland Guardian. You look at his 6 years in Cleveland, 138 home runs, 411 RBIs, and a batting average of .285. Only been with the Mets for 4 years, but he's going to break the 138 home runs he had with Cleveland. He's going to break that in 5 with the New York Mets. He's at 101 right now. He's going to do the same thing with RBIs because he's at 340 right now. This is as long as he's healthy. Batting average may stay down because it's at 256. I don't know if he'll get higher than that. Probably has to bat like around 300, I would think. OPS was at 833 with the Indians. At 787 with the Mets right now. But Lindor has been outstanding. Jeff Cohen saying on SNY, one panelist said Volpe was the best shortstop in baseball, and Sal Licata had to correct him, saying he's not the best shortstop in the city. Lindor is, which is true. I mean, everybody that's a Yankee fan, ever since Derek Jeter left, thinks their shortstop's the best shortstop. And maybe one day he will be a very good shortstop. He's not Francisco Lindor. Be honest with yourself, Yankee fans. And I'm pretty sure most Yankee fans would take Francisco Lindor over Volpe in a heartbeat. in a roster that's struggling to score runs outside of Juan Soto and Aaron Judge. Ibby saying plenty of people deleting April and May tweets on Lindor. I'm pretty sure they are. Heck, at Citi Field, when I was at the Braves series, fans were chanting MVP. Never thought I would hear that. But everyone at Citi Field was chanting for him. Jingle Man saying Lindor's contract was a bargain. That was a discount price, and it probably was. You compare him to all the other shortstops that became free agents. Obviously, Corey Seager has had his really good seasons with Texas and won the World Series. Javi Baez hasn't been the same since leaving the Mets. You got Marcus Semien. But you think about all the stuff that Francisco Lindor has done. You look at F-WAR and how he leads. He's on the top of top 5 of that, and WAR itself. Home runs for a shortstop, RBIs, stolen. I mean, the guy has done it all this season, helping this team, carrying this team on his back. Something that you wish Pete Alonso would do when Francisco Lindor is slumping. But Pete Alonso has not been there at the moment, and we're waiting. We're waiting to see if Pete Alonso can get us to that point. And no time is better for Pete Alonso to help carry this team than on this absolutely pivotal road trip that they're going on. 4 in San Diego, 3 in Arizona, 2 teams that are ahead of them in the wild card standings right now. 3 against the worst team in baseball, in the Chicago White Sox. And I'm sorry, that's a series you absolutely need to sweep. Not only because the Chicago White Sox stink, but because I want the Chicago White Sox, and I'm sorry, Howie Rose, I don't want the Mets to have the worst record in all of baseball anymore. That 40-120 season from 1962. The White Sox can have that and take it forever because I don't want it anymore. I remember Howie Rose saying that, it meant something to a lot of the fans that grew up in that era. Well, I don't want that. I don't want that on our history anymore. Let the White Sox have the worst record in all of baseball. And sweep that team, please. I know Lane Kerner asked if they can sweep San Diego this 4-game series. It's going to be very tough. But if they can, that puts them right in to that second wild card spot there, possibly. Because if you look at the standings, and I'm going to bring them up real quick, but the Mets, although they are 1.5 games behind the Atlanta Braves for that third wild card spot, they are 4 games behind the Arizona Diamondbacks and 4 games behind the San Diego Padres. You sweep the San Diego Padres, as Lane Kerner is asking, and you have now taken their spot, or at least tied them. I would love a sweep of the San Diego Padres. But they've been on such a run right now, along with the Arizona Diamondbacks. I think I heard on the radio today, I don't know if it was on WFAN this morning or if it was on, I think it was WFAN. And on my way to the dentist, I heard them talk about the best teams of the second half, and the Arizona Diamondbacks and the San Diego Padres were a part of that. Pantrice, I mean, would anybody in this chat be shocked because of what we've seen all season long if the Mets were swept by the White Sox? I don't think it's going to happen, but losing a series, right? They lost a series to the Angels. They lost a series to Seattle, who's had a losing streak ever since they faced the Mets. Losing to the Oakland A's, who are worse than them. It wouldn't shock me, but the Mets do really need to sweep this team. No doubt. No doubt in my mind. Stanley saying this road trip will be pivotal to the Mets playoff run. Absolutely. It's the most important road trip this team has all season long. Junior Swingman asking if Howie really said that. He tweeted it out, or X post, or whatever you want to call it. He did X post it out, like some fans still have this, heartfelt for that 1962 team, the lovable losers. It's okay to love the 1962 team, the first team that, was the first year of Mets baseball. It's okay to love that team. But to want to hold on to the record is another thing. And I don't want to do that anymore. Just like Maureen says, she grew up in that era, and the White Sox are welcome to break that record. Thank you, Maureen. Thank you. Ibby saying you listen to the dentist of radio before going to the dentist and don't treat yourself like that. I know. Sometimes you just tune in just to tune in, and then you turn off and put on some music. Stanley saying we've beaten Cease already. Let's beat him again. I think the Mets, the last time they faced the Arizona Diamondbacks, it was a sweep. I think that they swept the San Diego Padres in that series. And they're up 3-0 when it comes to the tiebreak on San Diego. Now, if the Mets can win one more of those games, that's another team, just like the St. Louis Cardinals when they beat them in St. Louis a couple weeks ago, to have a tiebreak on. With the way the Mets have been playing all season long, struggling against very, very bad teams, if this Mets team ties any one of the Padres, the Diamondbacks, the Braves, you even throw the San Francisco Giants there. They're the only teams above 500 and are in a wild card spot. They're 3.5 back. You have the season series tiebreak against these teams. It goes a long way. Look at what happened in 2022 when the Mets and the Braves were tied in the season series. I mean, at the end of the season. They were tied at the end of the season with the same record. But because the Braves had the tiebreak, they won the division. It could be costly, folks. Win the tiebreak. Win the tiebreak against San Diego. Win the tiebreak against Arizona. And all the Mets have to do is win one game. One game out of these 4 against the Padres, and they have the tiebreak. Got to figure out a way to do it. Let's dive a little deeper into the series preview against the San Diego Padres. Luis Severino, fresh off his complete game shutout, the first Mets complete game shutout since 2021, since Jacob deGrom threw one. Luis Severino, 8-6 with a 3.91 ERA. going up against Dylan Cease, 12-9, with a 3.46 ERA. Big start to this series. Very big start to this series. And you know who's going to be a huge factor? Francisco Lindor, because he's got 3 home runs and 5 RBIs against Dylan Cease in 9 at-bats. JD Martinez in 8 at-bats, batting .500 with 2 RBIs. And what Luis Severino has to do is watch out for Manny Machado. He's got 3 home runs and 5 RBIs in 17 at-bats against Sevy. Win tomorrow and start gaining a little momentum. Start seeing it snowball. And maybe it could carry this team a little bit. We saw Jose Quintana completely wipe away and Danny Young completely wipe away any momentum that this team had going for them. After Francisco Alvarez had possibly the biggest home run of his career. You go to game 2, Paul Blackburn, who in 4 starts has had 3 really good starts with the New York Mets. I was there Sunday for the start before they lost, but it wasn't Paul Blackburn's fault at all. He's 5-3 with a 4.19 ERA, taking on everyone's favorite Padre, Mr. Greasy Ear, Joe Musgrove, 3-4 with a 4.97 ERA. Remember we talked about Pete needing a step up? He's got a home run and 3 RBIs in 10 at-bats against Joe Musgrove. Jose Iglesias, OMG. He's got a home run and 3 RBIs, batting .400 in 15 at-bats. This is going to be the Francisco Lindor series. In 20 at-bats, 2 home runs, 3 RBIs, batting .350 against Joe Musgrove. Game 3 on Saturday. David Peterson, 7-1 with a 3.0 ERA against Michael King, former New York Yankee, who they traded for Juan Soto, 11-6 with a 3.18 ERA. Most of the time, the Mets have seen Michael King. They have struggled. Not too many at-bats against him, but they have struggled against him. And then Sunday, Martin Perez, who's 3-5 with a 4.67 ERA against Jose Quintana, 6-9 with a 4.57 ERA. Like I said, Jose Quintana's last 4 starts, an over 8 ERA. Absolutely cannot have that against this San Diego Padres lineup. He cannot struggle. He cannot soft toss. He cannot nibble against this San Diego Padres lineup. I honestly see a huge series for Francisco Lindor coming up. And the Mets have hit Perez pretty well. Jeff Cohen saying it would be fantastic if Sevy can keep his momentum going. We already know that Sevy has kind of pitched over his innings limit. I want to say he's got a limit, but he's pitched way more innings than he's pitched since 2018. But as Isaac Groffman said on my show earlier on in the week, that the good thing about what we've seen from Luis Severino is that his velocity has stayed the same and has not gone down ever since a couple weeks ago. Carlos Ortiz says take 3 out of 4. That's the hope, right? Obviously, that never works out for the Mets in these 4-game sets. It's always either been a split, right? I think all season long, they've mostly split every 4-game series. Jeff Cohen saying, one, that Peterson has been so good lately, and if we'll see a bullpen game on Sunday. Honestly, I would not be shocked. I would really consider monitoring how you use Jose Butto this weekend, because he's going to become an important factor in this series. And hopefully we get the return of Daniel Nunez, who had a minor league outing and pitched very well in that 1 inning. So hopefully we see the return of Daniel Nunez, who can only help this bullpen out, which is in need of help. I don't know who they get rid of, whether it's Adam Ottavino or Danny Young. I don't know who it is that goes, but someone's going to go. And it's not anyone in the lineup. It's not Jose Butto. It's not any of the starting pitchers. It's not Edwin Diaz. Definitely not Phil Maton, who's been pitching pretty well. Big series against the San Diego Padres. Like Ibby says, Mets got to score this trip. Offense needs to carry and be consistent. They're going up against some hittable pitchers. Dylan Cease, who's had a kind of turnaround this season from the last time we saw him, it's going to be a little bit tough. I really would like to beat Joe Musgrove, and we all know why. Michael King is going to be tough. Can David Peterson pitch another gem? We saw him pass the test against Baltimore. Can he now do it against San Diego, another top team? Can the Mets hit Michael King? And we know that they can hit Martin Perez, but on the other side of that is Jose Quintana. And like Ibby says, they have to capitalize with runners in scoring position. These teams will crush them if they fail with runners on. It's true. Have you ever noticed that when the Mets have bases loaded, 2 on, no outs or 1 out, and they get, they gain all that momentum, and then they get out of the inning without getting a big hit, that the team that comes up with the offense starts to gain momentum and scores runs? It's happened too many times this season. The Mets haven't had a really consistent good output of offense since June, July. It'd be nice to see that in this series and on this road trip. And one of the most important things that Jeff Cohen's saying right now, pitchers need to limit the walks. That has been killer this whole entire season. The Mets lead the National League in walks. They're only behind the Chicago White Sox, the worst team in Major League Baseball, who lead all of MLB in walks. Got to get over it, folks. The Mets have got to get over this. I don't know how much more to stress than I have done already, and we've all done together. 74 with you, 74 in here right now with me. Please make sure you like the video. Please make sure you're subscribing to Subway to Shea. Also subscribe to all the Mets content creators who are putting out great work. Abe, who's in the chat. Till Mets Do His Part with John Saponaro. Top Bunk Sports. Shea and Sons Podcast. Mets Weekly. Talking Mets with Rob. Wardy NYM. This is your go-to spot. Along with all of these great content creators who I've collaborated with. You want to hear the Mets talk that you need to hear? You come here and you go visit all of those great content creators. I will return on Monday. Once this series is over, they have Monday off. And then it's Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday against the Arizona Diamondbacks. Friday, Saturday, Sunday against the White Sox. Stanley said it. We must sweep the White Sox if we're a playoff team. No doubt about that. Like I said earlier, the Braves are begging us to take that final spot. So we will reconvene on Monday. Probably will be in the afternoon. It'll either be in the afternoon around 3:30. Will be a live show. I know I don't have a set schedule for the show. It has to work around my work schedule. So I just pick spots and I just go live. So Monday, either at 3:30 or around 9 o'clock, you'll see Subway to Shea. Hopefully I'll have a guest on. I hope I did okay solo. I don't really do solo shows. I always like to have a guest on, but thankfully I have you guys. You guys were really my guests today. Everyone in the chat felt like a guest today. Shout out to all of you. Stanley, Matt, Maureen, Jeff, Pantrice, Jingle Man, Carlos, Junior Swingman, everyone that's been in the chat today. My guy Top Bunk, Lane Kerner is always here. Appreciate you as well. Brad, who was in here earlier. I don't know if he's still in, but appreciate you as well. This has been a fun hour for me, and I appreciate everyone for tuning in. But like I said earlier, if you love the show, please subscribe. Please like this video. And you can always leave comments for me. I'll try to answer as many as I can. And shout out as well to Jeff Cohen. He's got his baseball and BBQ podcasts out there. If you haven't checked that out, please do. Johnny Boy in the chat. Smash that like button. Appreciate you, my friend. If you like to listen instead of watch on YouTube, you can subscribe on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Follow Subway to Shea on X, Instagram, and TikTok at Subway to Shea. Always got little clips coming out here and there and a lot of posts. I'm also on Threads at Subway to Shea on Threads. And you can follow me at Aunt Rivera 86. A lot of content coming your way, especially in the month of September. If you're a hockey fan, I got content as well at Total Hockey Now. A lot of stuff going on. But what's most important right now is this 4-game road trip that the Mets are getting set to embark on. Starts off with Luis Severino and Dylan Cease. 1 game at a time. 1 pitch, 1 out, 1 inning, 1 game at a time. Let's take care of business on this road trip and put ourselves in good standing for a wild card spot. Shout out to all you. Eddie Presti in the house. Shout out to you, my friend. Shout out to everyone in this chat. Appreciate you all. That's going to wrap up Subway to Shea. And as I always like to end, let's go Mets. And you're going to hear a lot of this while we end this season. As we gear towards the postseason, you got to believe. Thanks, everyone, for tuning in to the Subway to Shea podcast.